Hey, everybody, welcome to our next unit of ENG 110. We're going to take our quick walkthrough of this week's assignments and get you guys started a little early this week. So let me share my screen. Awesome. All right. So we are ready for Unit 4, which means at the end of this week, we're already going to be halfway done with the course. I know that time moves quickly. So let's go ahead and take a look at Unit 4. This week, we're going to continue what we've already really started with, which is evaluating sources and incorporating them into our own writing. So with the previous assignment from essentially 2 weeks ago, you had an article that was provided for you, right? And so now we're going to be starting work on your argument essays, which means that you are going to be doing papers individually. So there are pre-chosen topics, but everybody's will probably end up looking a little bit different. And especially you may find completely different resources than your classmates, even if you're working on the same topic. So this week, we're going to be focusing on finding and evaluating those kinds of sources and begin practicing including them in other ways besides just direct quoting, which of course is what we practiced back in Unit 2. So let's take a look at our readings and resources. As usual, there are things for you to read in the textbook. There's also a wonderful video that will help you navigate the library databases. One of the things to keep in mind with this paper that you're going to be starting this week and then ultimately turning in later is that we want to focus on library resources, not just Googling to find websites that are relevant. Certainly you can also use the internet for inspiration, but you want to have real scholarly resources. And of course, we've been talking about that and what it means for something to be scholarly. So make sure, read the chapters, listen to view the video. Brain just lost that word for a second. And then there's a section on evaluating sources, which of course is going to help us decide why or why not we would want to use certain types of resources in our papers. There's also a great activity in this section because one of the things that you're going to be doing for the upcoming work is creating your own references page. Now, you still had to create a references page for the Unit 2 assignment, but the citation was already done for you. All you had to do was take it from the assignment sheet and utilize it. You're going to be creating your own references now, and so that's going to be very important. All right, so those are your readings and resources. And as usual, there are 2 assignments. One is a discussion board, and that is essentially choosing an issue from the list here and talking about the 2 sides. We tend to think of arguments and argumentative topics as having 2 sides, pro and con. In some cases, pro and con is a little bit oversimplified, but we'll talk about that in a second. So for your post this week, this is actually kind of a fun one. Select a fun product that is interesting to you. You can write 1 paragraph about the pro of using the product and 1 paragraph about the con of the same product. You can pick your own product, but there are some ideas here that you can look at. And even within this, I would invite you to choose a very specific product, like a particular brand of non-waterproof mascara. You can leave it more general, so whatever feels the best to you, but you can think of a specific actual product as well. An SUV over other kinds of vehicles, organic food, scented candles, black flavored licorice are the ones that are here for you. I've had people choose a particular phone. That's always a popular one, an iPhone over versus an Android phone, that kind of thing. So in your responses to others, of course, you will look at your peers' product responses. And have you ever used the product they are writing about? Did any of the pros and cons they highlighted persuade you to use or try the product? So as always, your initial post is due by Wednesday night, and then you have until Sunday of next week, so a week from today, when I'm taping this, to review and to reply to at least 2 of your fellow classmates. And I will say, for the most part, in the Unit 2 discussions, I haven't looked at Unit 3 yet. I'll be doing that in the morning, but people have been doing a pretty good job with responding to others. So let's keep up that great work. Then you have another writing assignment. So last week in week 3, we had a knowledge check. This week, we're back to having a formal writing assignment. So remember, this is a big part. It's got to be handed in and uploaded as a Word document or a PDF. And it has to be in an APA format. So it will have a page, title page. It will have the part, the essay, the paragraphs, there's 2 paragraphs in this one. And then it will have a references page with at least 2 cited sources. So you're going to have citations in 2 places. You're going to have those full entries on the references page, and those you're going to have to create yourself. These are not created for you this week, but we can look at how to find those in the library resources. And then you're going to have the in-text citations. Typically, remember, your in-text citations are only going to be an author and a year, maybe a paragraph number. We can work on those as well. All right, so let's take a look at the assignment. For this assignment, select one of these issues to write about, and you want to choose carefully because this will be your topic for the next few weeks. Wage standards, and of course, the biggest debate on that is whether or not there should be an increase in the standard federal minimum wage. Screen time for kids, whether or not we should be limiting it. And jury duty, which I find an interesting one because jury duty has just always been a part of our culture. But there are some arguments that it shouldn't be, right? So a pro paragraph, a con paragraph. And if it helps you to think of it as just the 2 sides of an argument rather than pro and con, that is fine as well. But essentially, like with wage standards, the minimum wage should be raised, the minimum wage shouldn't be raised. So pro and con is fairly easy there. With screen time, you could make it about good things that kids get from being on screens and bad things that kids get from being on screens, or you can focus more on, kids should be limited to a certain number of screen hours per day, or they shouldn't be. They should be free to use screens all they want to. So there's a couple of different ways you can look at that one. And then jury duty, of course, should people be forced to serve on juries? Why or why not? So pro and con on that one is fairly straightforward. So let's take a look at the assignment sheet. Again, I want to remind you the importance of these assignment sheets because it really does spell out everything that you need to do. 2 paragraphs. First paragraph will be the pro, second paragraph will be the con, or if you are against it, you could flip those. So essentially, you're making your own beginnings of your argument here. So 1 on one side and 1 on the other side. You have to choose one of those 3 issues. You need to use the library to search for your articles, and you should have 1 on each side. You will sometimes find articles that cover both the pros and cons, and that's fine. But remember, you want to aim to have 2 resources for this because these will also help you and become resources in your argument paper. Read the articles, choose important information from each of the articles that will help you with the pro and help you with the con. Create your paragraph pro using that pro article. And you have to include a paraphrase or a summary. Either way, it's in your own words, so not a direct quote. And you're going to include the in-text citation. Again, this isn't done for you this time because they're not picking your articles, but author's last name and year are the standard. If you have an article that does not have an author listed, you would use the title of the article and the year. If you have something that doesn't have a year, which should not happen because you're using library resources, but we all know on the internet, sometimes there isn't a year. N period, D period is how we specify that. So then so that'll be your first paragraph. You don't have to write an introduction. It'll just be the 2 paragraphs kind of all by themselves, pro paragraph, con paragraph, and you'll do the same thing. You'll have at least 1 citation in each of those. So at least 1 citation in text for each of your articles that you have used. And then you'll have the references page. Now, I will tell you this. I am a huge believer in the fact that you should create your references page before you ever write your paragraphs. It is the last page of your document, but you need it in order to know what to put in those in-text citations. So it's a good idea to do that first. And I'll show you how to get the citation directly from the library so you can do it right away. You will need to submit it as a Word document or a PDF. So no just typing in the box. We've been over that. Include the APA formatted title page and the proper APA style of the document. So double spacing, all that normal stuff. Sorry, my dogs are losing it. Each of the paragraphs should be about 7 to 9 sentences. You should use evidence from an academic and reliable library source that is either paraphrased or summarized. Summarized just means it's not a kind of one-to-one correlation. If you paraphrase a sentence, you end up with a sentence. If you summarize a paragraph, you might end up with just 1 sentence. Make sure to include that evidence in your essay and have that parenthetical citation that corresponds then with the items on the references page. And follow all the regular APA formats. The objective third person is something that a lot of folks struggled with a little bit in the second week. First week, of course, was in first person because it was about our lives, but we are writing academic language. So keep it in the third person. You never, for example, need to say, I think, I see, I read, I found. We know it's you because it's your paper. So you just make the point and then use facts and figures and whatnot to back it up. Okay. As usual, you have access to the rubric in advance, so you can kind of target what areas you might need to pay special attention to. And so that is the Unit 4 assignment sheet. Let's go back to the module. And of course, then you have a heads up. Now, really quickly, I want to show you, and I'm not going to go too far in depth because there's already a video about it in the course, but I want to show you how easy it is to use the library. So I'm actually going to exit the preview because I need to go up here to the library link. And you can use this search bar right here. Now, I'm going to use a topic that is not one of the 3 chosen ones, simply because I don't want to accidentally do a bunch of research for anybody. That way it's not unfair. So I'm going to search for, and you'll have to sign in. Sorry, didn't do that quick enough. Before you start searching. Oh, I am signed in, it looks like. Yeah, okay. So you can put the keywords in here. Now, the reality is a big part of finding resources is playing around with how you find resources. You can always contact the library for some additional help. This is a contacting EBSCOhost, but you can always reach out for help for this. Up in the upper right-hand corner, you notice there's an Ask a Librarian button that will connect you with a post librarian who can give you some very specific help as well. So I'm going to research term limits. This is not one of the topics that you can use. So again, I'm not doing anybody's research for you, but I'm just going to put in term limits and Congress, the word Congress. Now, you notice I did not put in pro, I did not put in con. sometimes it's a matter of just kind of seeing what the articles are about and that sort of thing. You can always make it more specific down the road if you get too many things. And I would argue that possibly having almost 2 million things to choose from might be too many things. We also want to limit it to full text because we want to make sure that we're getting things that we can actually access. So that brought it down by 300,000 at least. And we can further limit it to peer reviewed. Now, I personally don't care if you limit it to peer reviewed. Most of these things, like here's the first two are both academic journals, which are going to be peer reviewed as well. This one is not. It's Time for Term Limits in Congress is from the magazine called Business Journal, which is not a scholarly production. It is a popular magazine. I don't have a problem with you using that type of resource because it's still a good resource. This is not a very long article though, so I may not use it, but you notice it's only, here's how you see that. It says page 13 of 13, 13 to 13, and it was only a half a page. Whereas these longer ones, this first one is pages 849 to 858, so it's almost a 10-page article. You may want to focus on things that are a little bit more, meaty, so to speak. You can also decide that you want to limit your searches other ways. So if you click on peer reviewed, let's see how far that takes us down. Yeah, we're way under 1 million now. So peer reviewed is better. Peer reviewed is more scholarly, but you can leave that filter off, especially if you're having a hard time finding stuff, if there's not a ton of articles to choose from. One other way that you can limit things is to say, I only want to see things in academic journals, or I only want to see things in magazines. Like you can focus on the type of source. You can also limit it to date. So I would say, since this is a kind of political topic, maybe the last 22 years, like maybe go back to the year 2000. That's still, a pretty big time frame. And it didn't take us down much, 591,910. So when you find an article that you think you want to use, you click on it and it will open up. You can look at it. You can see it in HTML view, in some cases, PDF view in others, or in this case, in number 3, you actually can choose from either one. This one up here, and it's a fairly short article, so I probably wouldn't use it, but it's still, it is PDF text, so that's going to show you what it actually looks like in the journal. So let's just open this one. Okay, because it's a longer one, it's 15 pages. That's going to be a substantial article. So I'm just going to choose this one. And you'll notice that it gives you an abstract. It gives you all kinds of information. You have to scroll down to read the actual article, but this is the actual article. But notice over here, this is the button. This is the magic button I want to show you guys. The citation button, once you're in the article, will allow you to scroll down and get the APA reference. So I can take this and hit Control-C to copy it. Then I can paste it into my Word document. Now, I'm probably going to have to make sure that things like this stay in italics. I'm going to have to probably put those back in italics. It probably won't transfer when I copy and paste. Sometimes they also mess up and use weird title capitalization or even all caps for people's names and stuff. So you may have to make some changes to it, but this will give you a really good head start on that citation. Now, you'll gather those. Now, if I wanted to try to narrow it down even more, I could say, okay, term limits Congress, let's try it with pro and con and see if we can find things that are clearly in favor of term limits or against term limits. So I'm only finding now, notice 200,000. Now I still have full text peer reviewed and the dates selected. Let's take peer reviewed off and see if that opens it up at all. Oh, do it down here, sorry. yeah, that gave us a lot more things, including here's an ebook that did not show up before. So I would limit it to full text, but possibly not peer reviewed. And you don't have to limit the dates, but I would not pick things that were written, 30, 40, 50 years ago. But so here's one, term limits and their consequences. And this has got pro and con, probably both in it. Let's put con and run the search again. And that's a different number and it's a different one on top. So it's interesting. You can, jury duty pro, jury duty con, and I would search separately, but I would also run one search together. And you're looking for only one article on each side right now. But if you find other things that you want, because you will be writing your research paper, your bigger paper on it. Let's say I don't want to use this ebook for this assignment because I don't want to read a whole ebook. But let's say I want to save this so that I can use it for my paper. This is another magic button. And one of my favorite things is that you can email this to yourself. So on the same side where you found the citation tool, you can send it to your Google Drive. You can print things out if you want to. But I'm a big fan of emailing it to myself so that if I want to go back to it later, I can. But like I said, export, bring that citation over, put it in a Word document right away. Notice how short this one is. Books are a lot shorter than articles in their citations. And this one is correct. Everything is right on that. So I would just copy it and paste it. Again, I'm probably going to have to put term limits back in italics. And my in-text citations for this one will have Doran and Harris, because I've got two authors, 2001, but then I'm also going to, if I'm pulling a quote from the book, I'm also going to jot down the page number that was on. So if you forget to do that, it's not a huge deal. Author and date is the main thing. All right, so happy hunting. I look forward to reading your paragraphs, and as your grades come in from week 3 on the discussions, make sure you check out your feedback. You should have automatically gotten your scores on your knowledge check because those are graded immediately for you. So if you have any questions, of course, as usual, feel free to reach out. And if not, I will see you back here next week for our next weekly walkthrough. Hope everyone has a great week.